I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, and today we're talking Bore Driver ELD-X muzzleloading bullet, and I'm joined around the table right beside me, fellow marketeer and fellow muzzleloader hunter, Judd Jarzynka, and then across the table, the guys on the technical side of things, Ryan Damman, Project Engineer, and his boss, Assistant Director of Engineering, Joe Thielen. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, we're talking new products, and this one, new.
Yeah, finally. We may have alluded to it in a handful of episodes, but finally we can talk about it.
Yeah, it just launched. It's a brand new product for us, and it's one that we take very serious. Center fire ammunition and center fire bullet, as a component, they get a lot of the limelight. They get a lot of the spotlight. But the muzzleloading's not a second fiddle for us. It's something that, with the Bore Driver line, you guys have very specifically attacked what I'm going to call modern inline muzzleloader. That it works and it is designed specifically for them. And the performance, it's easy because you keep that in consideration during the design process. So
yeah, that's probably something we should hit on is Bore Driver in general.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. So Joe, Ryan, the Bore Driver was a huge advancement for us. I'm going to call it a technological breakthrough to put a marketing spin on it. But it is a sabbatless system that is Colorado legal, and that system, not just is it Colorado legal, it actually enhances its accuracy. That's what makes it work so well. So talk us through, the Bore Driver line as a whole. What is the Bore Driver all about?
Well, like you said, it's a non-sabot projectile system for an inline muzzleloader. We wanted to have an option that's a cup and core, a drawn jacket, rifle bullet, but we have to have a system on the back end for a gas seal and something to spin that projectile up with a muzzleloader system. So that is at the base of what these bullets is the cavity in the back, and then the post on the skirt. And that system is the Bore Driver. And we just carried that into new product here. But like I said, the big benefit is non-SABO, so you're Colorado legal. Sabot, SABO. I'll probably go back and forth on that, how I talk about it here. But so there's some tricks on how to form that in the base and how we were going to do that. That was early on development of how are we going to get those two pieces to hold together.
Sure. And
how is it going to load, and is it going to be accurate? And I think we succeeded in accomplishing all those things.
Absolutely. Joe, from a dynamic and gyroscopic stability standpoint, why is that spin up so critical, specifically for a muzzleloader bullet?
So, as everybody knows, with a muzzle loader, you have to load the projectile from the muzzle end instead of the breech end. And then when you do that, your bullet, or your package, if you will, has to fit down the barrel, but then it also has to obturate in some form or fashion or have some features to it so you'll get spin up. Because if you don't get spin up with your projectiles that are spin stabilized, they will not shoot very good.
Okay,
they're not
so it's an accuracy thing.
Yeah, and a gas seal and stuff so you don't get upset. So there's a few things that make muzzleloaders unique, and that is, from the firearm side, is the bore and groove diameter of the barrels they vary some. They vary more than a conventional center fire rifle, say 6.5 Creedmoor. And then the second thing is, to get them to shoot well, you need to have your system that Ryan alluded to is how we design it and build it. You have to get a clean release of your SABO, or in this case, your non-SABO, your skirt. Mm-hmm. You got to get a clean release. The cleaner you can release the projectile out of the muzzle, and the sooner you get the skirt or the SABO off the projectile, the better chance you have for inherent accuracy. So we built a few things into there, you'll notice. And then we also, like Ryan said, they're cup and core. That's our wheelhouse. We build a lot of cup and core bullets, jacketed lead core bullets.
That's where accuracy lives, right there.
We're very good at that. Exactly. So we took some of the things we learned from other bullets and making bullets for years and years and put them into this one. But the interaction between the skirt geometry and the projectile geometry is key, which I think we're going to think we'll get into that here, but it's key on making this thing shoot well. But the two things you need are you have to get them spun up and you have to get a clean release of your skirt or sabot and a muzzleloader.
And you have to be able to load it. I mean,
first and foremost, you got to be able to load it.
Get it down the barrel. And, I think all of us around the table have some experience with it. I know Judd used it early on, that original Bore Driver FTX. Loaded well, shot well, killed well.
Yeah. I got a couple things to hit on the separation of the bullet and the skirt. Just from doing high speed, it's like 18 inches and it's well off. Like it's instantly right out of the muzzle.
Well, and for the listeners, what Judd's talking about is Judd is the keeper of a very expensive high speed camera. So we use high speed footage to see that release and see if it's tipping off the bullet at all. And so you're saying within how far? 18 inches?
Yeah, it's right out of the muzzle.
Yeah, a couple feet. We also use that to examine spin.
Oh, rotation.
And examine the bullet rotating. We want to see how soon that skirt's dropping off. Is that bullet tipping, tilting, yawing at all as that skirt releases, and is it in fact spinning? And that is a valuable tool for us to use that high-speed camera, and we can see all that as it goes on.
If I remember right, when we did the initial Bore Driver, I think the first time we set up, we were like 6 or 8 feet from the muzzle, and the skirt wasn't even in the frame.
I think you're right. It was gone.
And we didn't know what the heck happened, but it comes off instantly. So, we had to move clear to the muzzle, and then we could easily say, but
awesome.
And then as far as, using that, the original Bore Driver, the FTX, my way of thinking with a muzzleloader prior to shooting the Bore Driver was I'm sighting my gun in at 100 yards, and if I can hit a paper plate size, if I can get 3 in that, let's go hunting. Heck, I'm feeling good. Outside, shooting that Bore Driver FTX, it's almost like if I don't get 3 touching, I want to shoot another group. Because you can do it. I mean, that's what's crazy. Going from the
paper plate accuracy.
Going from a pie plate to touching bullets with a muzzleloader, to me is like, that's been unheard of for me until I shot Bore Driver.
Well, just the confidence in that lens, Now I've got my muzzleloader, and I know at 100 or 150 yards, I'm there. It's
right on. So you get to make some final points on the Bore Driver FTX, the original Bore Driver. Colorado legal. It's got that skirt that helps engrave into the rifling and impart that spin into the bullet, which is paramount for accuracy. And it helps those bullets be very accurate out of a wide variety of different barrels and barrel dimensions. And then from a terminal performance standpoint, one of the more popular muzzleloading bullets out there, the Power Belt, a plated bullet. And as good as those are for some applications, dependable and consistent terminal performance, when you're relying on pure lead, it leaves some to be desired. So we get the cup and core design, so it's easier to make accurate, and it's the terminal performance. Again, you tailored that specific to the muzzle velocities that a muzzleloader achieves, and so that was just a groundbreaking product for us. Now transitioning into the new for 2023, we're talking ELD-X, and that puts a smile on my face because we talked about it. Nebraska's got a 31-day muzzleloader season. I love to be out in the field just as much as anybody, and I know you guys are passionate about it too. And now you've got an extended season, and now you've got some extended range, and they go hand in hand. And walk us through what the Bore Driver ELD-X brings to the table, what the design process was, and what kind of the use case looks like for that bullet.
So for this ELD-X version, we wanted to give another option, something that's a little more ballistically efficient, if you will. You're looking at this one sitting on the table here, or the original 290. It's no cutting corners around it. It's short, stubby. It doesn't have a high BC.
Yeah, it's built for accuracy, and it's built for terminal performance for traditional range.
Traditional range, inside of a couple 100 yards, traditional hunting ranges, and it works great. But we thought, why not go a little bit further than that? We can give a customer, a hunter, everything that a factory 28 twist 50 cal inline muzzleloader will allow you to have. So the process, a lot of it comes down to stability and that slow of a twist rate. How much length can you get a long ogive on there, a long profile? And that's what gives you that high BC. How long can you get before you're not going to stabilize that thing anymore? So that's where the trade-offs come in, the design of this one. Because 50 cal 500 half-inch diameter bullet, when you start lengthening that thing out, you add weight real quick.
Yeah, that's a lot of lead inside there.
So you can make a giant bullet that's going to be insanely heavy, and you probably have a high BC if you have a barrel to spin it up and get it stable, but 28 twist, that's your limiting factor. So this bullet has a lot of air in the front. You'll notice that the tip is very large, and there's a lot of tip in the front end too, so that pushes that center of gravity, the center mass, way back towards the rear end of that bullet. That's what allows the length that has compared to the 290. And there's a 340 grain bullet. I don't know if we've mentioned that.
That's a heavy weight. That's a long ball hitter there.
It's a lot of bullet.
It's a lot of bullet there, but it's comparable. I mean, there's other bullets out there, other 350 grain bullets out there. It's comparable. It's in the realm of what people may have already been using in the past. So I wanted to get something that's it's going to be heavier, but we could have made a 500 grain bullet really. I mean, if you want to, it's just you had to cut that weight off somewhere and then figure out how to get an ogive that works. That's going to be some stability.
Well, what I like about this one is compared to other long-range, quote-unquote, muzzleloading bullet designs out there, this one has a actual ogive profile where the other ELR-style muzzleloading bullet, there is no ogive. I mean, it's just a weird-looking shape at the tip, and I don't know how well those things do ballistically. I haven't shot them on radar or anything to see what their BCs were, but this design just looks the part. It looks like you know what you're doing as far as bullet design goes. So great job there, and I really appreciate, I think we all do, that it just is, this aligns with everything you've done already. You went and looked at all the 50 caliber muzzleloaders, and what's the common denominator on twist rate? Is there some with a 1 in 24? Sure, but there's a lot of them with a 1 in 28, so you use that as your benchmark to guarantee stability and accuracy with that twist rate.
Yeah, and just to mention that again, that this whole thing was designed ground up. We built this tip just for this projectile. So
that's a big investment.
Yeah,
it's molds for that.
Mold. Mm-hmm.
We could have easily just cut a bunch of corners. We already have a bunch of tips that we have molds for, and would have been a lot of less added cost. And you can tell some people do that in bullets and other companies. You can tell that's what they did. They'll have this tip in an existing bullet.
So just move it over.
We want to make something else with a longer ogive, and let's just do the best we can and adapt that tip to that projectile. But in order to make something on this scale that much longer than what we already had, there really was no other option. Make a new tip, make it fit as good as we could.
So while we're talking about that tip, maybe you guys can kind of hit this also. This is an ELD-X bullet, but it is not the heat shield tip compared to the other ELD-Xs.
Yeah.
So this is a different material. Maybe explain why it doesn't have to be the heat shield tip.
Yeah, the heat shield. So the heat shield tip, that material really benefits when you have your projectile is launched at a certain velocity, and that bullet undergoes a certain temperature in flight, and then that's the whole reason heat shield came to be. But for these bullets, they're going so slow. You're under 2,000 feet per second. You're really not seeing those same thermal properties that are needed for that heat shield material. This material does just fine at the temperatures that it's seen in flight.
It's temperature over time, right?
Right.
Isn't that what you and Jaden have said?
Yep.
So it's, this is going so slow that the BC compared to the other bullets is so much higher, but yet it's still, compared to a 6.5 or 30 cal ELD match or ELD-X, the BC is still pretty low, and it's still losing velocity.
Right. So even if you launched it at a velocity fast enough so that it would experience that aerodynamic heating, it's degrading in velocity so rapidly that the heat wouldn't maintain long enough to start to deform the plastic.
Exactly.
And we need to let the viewers know that the heat shield material by nature is very hard and stiff, whereas this conventional Delrin material is softer. It's more malleable, so it lends itself to give you better terminal performance at the speed. So number one, you don't need heat shield. Number two, this conventional plastic, if you will, does a whole lot better job of giving you the terminal performance you need. So it's a no-brainer on why you would use. This is one of those applications where, and we've gotten really good over the years, let's build stuff specifically for what we need it to do, and use the materials that we need. Don't just put it in there just because we have it. Oh yeah, we've got heat shield material, absolutely. Well, why would you not put it in? No, because it doesn't. The product doesn't need it, nor does it want it.
Yeah. So okay, that makes sense. There's so much more that goes into the development of a product that I think the general consumer and a lot of times the general employee here doesn't quite fully grasp how, uncovering one thing can actually influence many, many other things. We didn't talk about this. We've referenced it several times. What is the BC on this bullet?
It's right at 345 G1. No, 315.
315
G1.
345 sounded a little steep, but
sorry, it's 315. Yeah,
315 G1. Now, comparatively, the original 290 FTX is like a 135.
Yeah.
So that is
it's a
significant increase. Not even in the same universe. So what does that mean for us, for the muzzleloading hunter? What does that mean, that increase in BC, which is substantial to say the least?
I think the biggest thing, the biggest benefit, the ELD-X compared to the original Bore Driver, the FTX, is just that added ballistic advantage you get in real life hunting scenarios. The BC difference gives you a significantly less amount of holdover. We're talking if you have 100-yard zero, or almost 2 feet difference at 300 yards, 2 feet less drop.
Wow.
With the
even
new
though
340
it's
grain bullet.
nearly 100 grains heavier, it's 2 feet flatter at 300 yards.
Not to mention wind drift, wind deflection, and energy on target.
And wind deflection is going to be huge on these 50 cal bullets. Wind drift is a big factor.
That just blows my mind. So I've said when you first started working on this bullet, the heavier projectile kind of, I don't know, creeped me out for a while when it comes to choosing muzzleloader bullets. Before I worked at Hornady, I would go to whatever retailer and I would always try to find the lightest weight bullet, muzzleloader bullet. Because in my mind, the way it worked at the time,
with fast.
Shoot
I don't
faster.
know what I don't know. So
Sure, but
I'm
you were
like,
shooting them faster.
I'm shooting them faster, less drop, whatever. And then when you started working on this bullet and then fed me some facts of how that more efficient, higher BC projectile will actually have less drop for the muzzleloader world, I don't know. I don't know why, but that blew my mind.
Well, and that's it. Yep, exactly proves the point that you've got extended range with less drop, more energy on target, more velocity on target, and less wind drift. That's a win all the way around.
Well, I was going to say out here, it's one thing if you're hunting in the woods, and 50 yards is a long ways. Okay, I get it. But out here where we hunt, cornfields, bean fields, or even further west, sand hills, or Colorado, open terrain, 300 yards doesn't necessarily get you that far sometimes. And now you stack on an evening time where that's what you take it or you don't, I mean, this new bullet is going to lend itself to be very advantageous. And like places where I hunt, it's going to help. It's going to help me.
And it's been proven.
Yeah,
we talked about
perfect example was my antelope hunt a few weeks ago.
Yeah, episode 40. Check that out.
We're in a situation out there where we're hunting antelope with a muzzleloader in Nebraska. We had a hard time
in the grasslands.
There's nothing
in the Great Plains, and it's called the Great Plains for a reason.
We had a hard time breaking that 300-yard mark, and then that's why I ended up taking a 340-yard shot because honestly, that's as close as I can get.
Yeah, and that's what you built the bullet for. If this is as close as you can get, rather than send one out on a hope and a prayer, you can know that that your trajectory is going to be flatter. You're going to have the energy and velocity on target to make the bullet operate. You're not going to have near as much wind drift, and you can hang your hat on that and know with confidence you're going to put that bullet where it belongs.
Absolutely.
For the listeners that haven't heard that story, why don't you just briefly tell that? How you went through that. I mean, you had your distance, 340 yards. You pulled out your phone with the BC calculator, calculated your drop, and then went from there.
So before we had left on that trip, I had shot this bullet 300 yards here on steel. So I knew my drop at 300. And so that was in my mind. That was my max range. That was my max distance. I could shoot that comfortably.
Well, which for an inline muzzleloader, that's a poke.
Right. Yeah. Standard with a 290 grain bullet, I wouldn't my max distance is probably 250 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's dropping so much.
Right.
But anyway, I get to that, in that situation, okay, I range that antelope 340 yards. I know exactly where I'm holding that 300. I'm not confident much past that. So I had the ForDoff app on the BC side, the BC calculator, and I run it 340. Okay, I know how much drop that is compared to where in my reticle I was holding over before. And it was close enough that I'm comfortable taking that shot, especially when there was no wind. And the bullet was capable enough and it hit its mark. So with that shorter, stubbier bullet, I wouldn't have been in that situation. I wouldn't have shot that buck. Well,
and I think that that serves to prove a bunch of points. One of which is that BC value is an honest BC value. That's a Doppler radar derived BC, and I know there's some other long range muzzleloading bullets on the market that don't have quite the shape and the ogive profile that we do, but their advertised BCs are claimed to be near that 315 mark, which is what ours is. And I'll just tell you, I don't think that's going to hold water. I don't know.
And to expand on that, those published BC numbers, our BC is at Mach 1.5. It's what we can get out of a standard factory inline muzzleloader.
Yeah, you can pump the numbers
with standard Magnum loads, not the super Magnum loads that you would need to
get like 150 grain.
Get to Mach 2.0 or 2.2 or whatever those are published at with the higher BCs. Like, well, yeah, you shoot these at Mach 2, you're going to have a higher BC, but you need a special gun that can take those charges to even get to that velocity. So this is pretty honest at that BC.
That's awesome. That it is. We go through, obviously we have a Doppler radar. We use it for a bunch of stuff, but we're using it on muzzleloader bullets. But proof's in the pudding, because if that BC value wasn't that accurate, 340-yard shot, I mean, when you're doing 1,900 feet per second at the muzzle, that accounts for something. So that's a good BC value. And it's crazy to think, Judd running around trying to find the lightest bullet and launch those things as fast as I can, to just a few short years later being able to use a ballistic calculator in the field to make a really well-placed 340-yard shot. It's pretty.
With a budget-friendly inline muzzleloader.
Yeah, nothing fancy, just off-the-shelf factory inline.
That means something too.
Yeah.
Because I mean those new ones, the longer range type muzzleloaders, those are really cool. But not everybody's got one of those. Not everybody can afford one of those. And this is, like Joe mentioned, if you're hunting in tight timber, the original Bore Driver, perfect. I would choose that one, to be honest with you. But when you're not, when you're in the sandhills, when you're on the prairie, when you're in the mountains, you got to have something that works. And you can take your regular 28 twist inline muzzleloader and simply swap bullets and increase your range.
Yep. I'm just spitballing here, and I don't know if we can come up with this right now, but is there a point where the FTX is superior, and then at some point that ELD-X version passes it? So, for instance, say I'm a 100-yard timber shooter, 100-yard max. If I'm talking time of flight, is the FTX getting there before the ELD-X?
Yeah, I don't know the muzzle velocity difference.
It wouldn't. I wouldn't think it'd be much, to be honest.
I don't think it's very much. So, but if the FTX is going, let's just say 50 foot faster at the muzzle, yes, it's going to beat the ELD-X, the heavier bullet, for 50 yards. I'm just picking a number, but it's going to beat it. But it's going to be
for long.
It's not going to be for long.
But is that potentially a reason to shoot the FTX then? Like, hey, I'm only shooting.
Well, I think we need to have the conversation about terminal characteristics for these two.
Yes.
For that same subject.
Yeah, that's the other side of the point.
That's the one where you need to.
They're built differently. The FTX got a flex tip. It's in the name. The newer one's got a harder tip, and it's built that way for a reason. I mean, like I said earlier, that front end of that bullet's a lot of air space, a lot of air gap in there, so we had to take up room with air, not lead, so we keep our weight reasonable. That has some play on terminal performance.
Sure.
Now, we built this so that way it didn't just come apart when you shoot basically a muzzle velocity shot on a game animal. So the front end's built a little bit tougher around that harder tip. The FTX, softer front end, the tip allows that to expand a lot easier. So if you're a I know I'm not going to be taking a shot past 80 yards just because I can't see that far. Yeah, probably the FTX is probably the better option. But if you're going to be in the situation where, I might have to take a 325 yard shot because I'm hunting cut cornfields and it's December and like Judd actually has done the same exact thing.
My MO.
Yeah.
The difference between 200 and 300 yards, at 100 yards can make it or break you actually having a shot on a deer that year. Yeah, I'd say use the ELD-X.
That's a good point and a good way to summarize it.
Yeah, the FTX is a little better for terminal up close. Just face it, it is. It's a little tougher. It was built for that, but it will not give you the added downrange performance that the ELD-X does. So
and the Bore Driver ELD-X, we call it the ELD-X, and it's not just a name we slap on there. The ELD-X lineage regarding centerfire, it's got to do everything. It's got to do close up. It's got to do mid range. It's got to do extended range, and it's got to do it all accurately.
Really? Yes.
And that Bore Driver ELD-X lives up to that name and reputation. Proof's in the pudding. We've got animals down, groups that look like centerfire groups on paper. It's a turnkey package, Colorado legal, that just effectively extends your range by 100 yards or more sometimes just by switching to a different bullet. And that's the cool part to me is, if you're shooting, a saboted bullet or whatever you're shooting, but you need a little bit of extra range performance. You don't need a faster twist. You don't need a new muzzleloader. You need the right bullet and trust that the efficiency of the bullet is going to do the work at range.
Sure.
Yeah. On that note, trust the efficiency of the bullet because you can get higher velocities, and a lot of people love that muzzle velocity number. Higher the better. You got a 45 cal, 250 grain bullet and a sabot, and you'll be able to push it faster than this. No question, you're not going to be able to push a 340 grain bullet that fast. With standard loads, we're talking 1,900 feet a second. That's what you're going to get out of it. But if you just understand the bullet's capabilities, I think you're still better off.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well done with this one. And I mean that earnestly. Obviously, I'm a champion of all of our products and all of our new products here for 2023. But this one, in particular, it's a home run. I've been beating that up, but it's just amazing that it's just turnkey. Just shoot this one. That's
I imagine
all you have to do.
We're all going to be using this one this fall. Like you guys, some of you guys have got to use it. Ryan, I know I haven't got to use it yet, but I like hunting muzzleloader season anyway. For
less
me,
pressure.
It's a month. It's cold. I have one shot in the gun, so as a hunter, I enjoy that challenge.
Pressure's on.
So I enjoy it all. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I think that's something to say too for the non-muzzleloader hunters that are listeners. We're so excited about it in Nebraska because our muzzleloader season is a full month of December season. So that's a huge chunk of hunting time. So that's why we're so excited about muzzleloading projectiles. Same could be true for somebody in like Kansas. They have a muzzleloader season prior to
rifle.
Prior to rifle. So there's different perks out there that muzzleloading is something, especially with the bullets nowadays.
Yep.
Man, it's the go-to.
It is, and I think we mentioned this in a separate podcast, but Judd, you joked that your MO was hunting picked cornfields in December in those big whitetail states. Ohio, Iowa, Missouri, and all these states. But I guess you could include Nebraska in there too. You got that muzzleloader season and it's late. It's going to be cold, and they're going to be strapping on the feed bag.
They're coming out to the food.
Yep. And that can be a pretty amazing time to be out in the field. Anytime's good, but that's why we're so excited. That's a good point, Judd.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned whitetail. I wonder if we shouldn't just take a brief second and talk about the elk application. Especially with Colorado, with this.
Absolutely. Where they have special muzzleloader seasons in Colorado.
And bullet diameter and weight requirements as well.
Yep.
But that's a point that we haven't talked about. We're all hyped up on sandhills, mule deer, and big whitetail bucks, but if you're an elk hunter, this is about as good as it's going to get.
Cup and core, antimony lead core, 340 grains, 50 cal. I mean, what's not to like for elk hunting? I mean,
and they're historically the toughest animal to bring down in the woods. From all accounts, pretty much, you're not going to take him off his feet. He's moving, so you got to make sure that shot counts. And with a inferior bullet or one that is plated, not cup and core like you mentioned, you can limit your penetration pretty severely, and that's not okay.
Well, you have to be very selective on your shot.
Mm-hmm.
Shot play. These bullets here, he's quartering a little bit or angle or whatever. Just put it in his ribs and
let it fish in there.
We just shot him on high speed again this morning, and the crazy thing is like we shot the low end first, which was like what was it? Could you say it was a 300 yard impact or is it a little?
It won't be that far.
14. Just
The muzzle velocity is about 1460, what we shot it at.
and the crazy thing was I mean, you had your big wound cavity, your temporary cavity at the beginning of the block, and then even as it exited the block, and that's what 22 inches, 24 inches.
Wow.
And the wound cavity at the end of the block was still like
4 inches.
Yeah, 4 or
like
5
a
inches.
like a baseball.
as it was
all-
going. Yeah,
think of
all
that.
the way through. So
I mean,
that was pretty stinking cool.
that's got big game written all over it.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it because it is a big deal, but that Colorado legal, you get that Colorado elk season, it's early, the bulls are screaming, this is your bullet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It'll be every bit as accurate as you can accurately shoot your muzzleloader. That particular tag's a open sight only tag, so for as far as you can shoot with open sights, this is the one. It's big, it's heavy, it penetrates, it holds together. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Judd, because that's a point. Yeah, we're all hyped up on deer. Moose I'd throw in there as well.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a big bullet. And yeah, even at traditional range, it's still
A big
340
bullet.
grains.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about it, guys. I know that new product development is something that you and your team take very seriously, and obviously that's what we love to do. We love to innovate, and we love to make cool stuff. And Joe, you've mentioned this on just here a podcast not long ago. We love to do it because that's what we love to do. Like, we love to hunt, so we got to develop products that we can use on our hunts. And
There's not one person sitting at this table that's not an avid hunter.
Yep.
Not one. And that goes and it's not just this table. There's a lot of other tables or benches or desks or whatever in this company that it's the same way. So yes, I just think that's cool. I hope people can resonate with that because we do take that serious around here.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a great year. 2023 is going to be a fantastic year for Hornady. Certainly got some awesome new products, and this is definitely one of them. Is there anything else you guys want to drive home about muzzleloading and the Bore Driver ELD-X?
Oh, I think we covered the highlights.
You guys want to hit on any powder? I mean, is there? You've shot a variety of different powders.
Just
a preference.
We talked about this in the muzzleloader episode, but we can talk about it here too.
Yeah.
Just in generally speaking, I'll be my vote's always going to be with loose powder, and specifically Blackhorn 209, just because of, especially, that's even a good note on this heavy bullet, you can't get the velocities with pellets. I mean, a 3-pellet load, 150 grain load with this big 340 grain bullet, you're not even touching 1,700 feet a second.
Oh, wow.
Whereas max charge of Blackhorn, I can hit 1,900. That's a big difference there.
Yeah.
Not to mention the cleanliness, which in turn is ease of reloads on consecutive shots. That pelletized powder it fouls up way faster. It's dirty. So yeah, I'm going to be a fan of loose powder for sure. You can weigh it more accurately, weighed out, not by volume. Definitely weighed out. I find it's just so much, just such better mousetrap. You get just better results in general.
Yeah, a preference thing though. I guess I was just asking if they're performance-wise, you hit on it with the difference in velocity, but I mean, there's guys that love pellets.
Well, they're so convenient. I mean, you got to give it to them for that. But I feel like with the Bore Driver ELD-X, that's probably, the people that are going to buy this and use this in the field are probably looking to maybe go to that next level, maybe start weighing out their powder, see which powders perform the best, give them the best accuracy, best velocity. So,
yep.
Yeah, Blackhorn 209 definitely gets a big vote. It's really the only propellant that I've ever used on any, black powder substitute that I've ever used. Like I said, I think I've shot some in the lab for work, but for my personal stuff, it's always been Blackhorn 209.
Just make sure breech plugs are nice and clean and dry.
Yep.
Because you'll hear guys with hang fires with Blackhorns. It takes a lot more oomph to get that powder ignited.
Sure.
Make sure you're using 209 Magnum primers of some variety, not the muzzleloader labeled primers. Yeah, if your gun has a Blackhorn, designed for Blackhorn breech plug, have that. Yep. So, and I've fought that too. Shooting so much for testing and stuff, you're cleaning muzzleloaders all the time, and if that doesn't get dried out and you set up on a rack and maybe that solvent, whatever's in there, it drains down and it gets in that breech plug and that flash hole, and you think it's clean and dry, you might get a slight hang fire with that igniting that Blackhorn. So something I've learned.
Yeah. Well, you've shot more than anybody at the table, I think, here in the last few years.
Yeah.
Doing the ELD-X development and then the original Bore Driver. You were, put a hurting on some Blackhorn 209 and your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing the story of the Bore Driver ELD-X. I'm excited about it. I know you guys are, and it'll be a home run product as was the original Bore Driver. This one just extending that range just a little bit goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast. For more information on the Bore Driver ELD-X and the rest of the 2023 new products, check them out at Hornady.com, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.